Well, hey everyone, welcome back to Hope City, Arkansas, or welcome for the first time. If we've not met before, I'm Adam.
And I'm Ashley.
And we are starting a brand new church right here in Northwest Arkansas. Hope City is about this. We believe that hope is for everyone. You see, we believe that when people get to actually experience Jesus, when we experience him for who he really is, he changes our lives. And then that goes on beyond just our church. It goes out into our community. It goes into our homes, and our neighborhoods, our schools, and it actually impacts generations with the hope that only Jesus can bring. And so we're glad that you're here checking this out with us.
Yes. And if you are here today, I want to say Happy Mother's Day.
Yes, it's a big day, right?
To all of our moms, and thank you for taking time out of your special day to be here with us.
Yeah.
And I want to remind you to let people love you today, let people take care of you today, because as moms, we like to take care of everyone else and not always ourselves.
Yeah, you looked at me. I'm over here taking notes. She's telling me how to make this a great day for our family
yes.
as well.
So let today be about you. And also, I want to speak to a few other people as well. And that is to moms who may have struggled with infertility, or you're waiting on when is your Mother's Day? When can you be celebrated as a mother?
Yeah.
If you've lost a child along the way, or if you're missing your kids from afar, we just want you to know that you're loved and you're appreciated and you are cared for, and we are here for you. So if you are lonely, or if you just want someone to talk to about today or just life in general, please feel free to reach out, and we would love to be there for you.
Yeah, you can message us, comment below, whatever. We can follow up with you, and we can just listen and be a friend if that's what you're looking for. And also, in honor of Mother's Day, we've got a really cool opportunity for us to partner together to make a difference right here in this community, partnering with a great organization called Loving Choices Pregnancy Center. Loving Choices works with moms who are in crisis or maybe dealing with an unwanted pregnancy, and they offer pregnancy testing and ultrasounds. They offer counseling and help give resources to moms who are walking through maybe a really tough season of what does it look like to even be a mom, and they want to partner with moms to go through that. They even offer post-abortion resources and counseling to people who have chosen to go down that path. They've got a men's program to holistically partner with families to help out the entire family through that process. But for every person today that likes this video, who comments on it, shares it, or if you follow us on social media, we're going to make a donation to Loving Choices to help some moms, just to say Happy Mother's Day and to really make a difference in this community. And you have an opportunity to do that with us today as well.
Super excited about today's message. As a mom, I feel like I keep on falling with my kids, or even with my husband, just in areas of life.
Just keep messing it up. I know, isn't that the story of our lives?
Right.
Yeah.
And so if you can relate to that, please stay tuned, because we have a really great talk from Adam. Yes, we keep on falling, but God keeps picking us back up again.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we believe that we are all in the same boat. We are in this together, and that's what this message is all about. So thank you again for being here. Thanks for checking this out. Be sure to stick around to the end, and we've got some great opportunities to take some next steps with us as a church if you're interested in being involved.
Yeah, and thank you for watching.
Hey, welcome back to Hope City, Arkansas. So glad that you're here with us today. Prior to moving to Northwest Arkansas to plant Hope City, our family lived in Colorado, just outside of Denver. We were in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains, and man, we absolutely fell in love with everything the mountains had to offer. We loved getting out and hiking and biking and camping. And our first summer in Colorado, we were on our first ever camping trip with our 3-year-old and 2-year-old, which, by the way, if you have never tent camped with a 3-year-old and a 2-year-old, it's an experience, okay? You might need therapy afterwards, but in all seriousness, our family, we loved it. Some of our favorite memories came from camping trips together in those 3 years that we were there. And we spent most of our days while we were camping out hiking and getting our boys worn out so they would sleep at night in the tent. And we were on a hike on our first camping trip that summer. It was about a 1.5 mile hike out to this beautiful lake. And we made it out to the lake, and I had to climb up to the top to see a little bit more. There was where the trail ended, there was a spot where you could scramble up about a 6-foot rock climb, and then you could go on up the hill and you could see the rest of the lake. And our boys, they were pretty adventurous as well. For a 3-year-old, our son, he basically trail ran the whole hike instead of hiking, and then he would boulder over all the rocks. And then our 2-year-old, he was in a backpack carrier on my back. So I'm like, man, they've got this. My wife, she thought better of it. She goes, you probably shouldn't go up there, but I'm going to let you go. I'm just going to wait down here and let you guys go do it. So we climbed up, made it to the top, got a beautiful picture of this lake. When you think of a lake in the mountains in Colorado, like, this is it. It's just absolutely beautiful. Now, we turned around from the top and started coming back down, and that's where the problem came in. See, we had to go off the trail in order to get to the top of this hill. And it sounds great, except we got lost coming back down. I came to a spot where my only option was a 15-foot climb down this rock face, this cliff, or to turn around and go back the way we came. And so as we stood there, I told my 3-year-old who was behind me holding my hand, I said, hey, Daddy's going to turn around and we're going to go back the way we came and we're going to try to find another way down. Well, as I turned, my foot slipped and I started falling. Yeah, down that 15-foot drop. I mean, you talk about worst case scenario as a dad. Now, I'll save you the suspense and let you know everybody was okay. My 3-year-old, I had just let go of his hand moments before I fell. My 2-year-old, he's strapped to my back and he made it down to the bottom without a scratch. And for me, it could have been a lot worse. I was cut up, I was bruised, I was bloody, covered in dirt. I sprained my ankle, but I could still walk. But we were all okay. Now, I'll tell you, the worst part about the whole experience, besides like the trauma of the fall itself, was how I felt about it afterwards. I mean, I just felt like a terrible dad. My job as my boys' dad was to protect them and provide for them, and I felt like I'd failed miserably. And I started playing out all these what-if scenarios. Do you ever do that? Play out, like, what if this would have happened? Like, what if I hadn't let go of my 3-year-old's hand? You know, what if my 2-year-old had taken the brunt of the fall, or his arms or legs had gotten twisted or caught in the fall from the carrier? You know, what if we hadn't stopped, about 10 feet short of the lake? And what if we had gone into the lake that was deep in that section? Like, this could have ended a whole lot worse than it actually did. And the fact that nobody was hurt worse than they were is just a miracle. But then I had to go show up and see my wife again. So here I am with our 2 boys, our 2 toddlers, cut up and bloody and bruised, and she's heard us screaming from, down the lake. And she's looking at me like I've just survived like a 15-foot fall off of a cliff, because I just survived a 15-foot fall off of a cliff. And again, I just felt like a failure of a husband and a man in that moment. And she showed me all kinds of grace in that moment. But man, you talk about like a moment where your life flashes before your eyes and you go, man, I just feel like a failure. Like that was it for me. And look, here's the thing. I know I'm not alone here. What happened to me hiking that day, it just applies to life, doesn't it? I mean, we get off the path, we get off the trail, we get off course, we end up somewhere that we never intended to be. We're lost, or worse yet, we fall. And we end up like bloody and bruised and beat up by what we've done or what's been done to us. It just applies to life, that kind of failure, doesn't it? I mean, maybe it's with your family. Maybe no matter how hard you try, you just find yourself back in fights with your spouse or with your kids, and you guys are just beating each other up all the time, and it's exhausting. Or maybe it's an addiction. Maybe you've been in plenty of groups and you've been doing all of your work along the way, but you can't shake the need for another hit or another drink or another click on that website. Or maybe for you, it's not even what you've done, but it's what's been done to you, right? Maybe you ended up somewhere with someone doing something you never intended to do, but here you are, and you're left with the shame and the regret and the guilt of what they've done to you. Or maybe for you, it's church, right? I mean, let's be honest, churches, we're not the best at seeing our own stuff and owning it, but we're pretty good at pointing out the stuff that happens in other people. And so maybe you got to a point with church where you just got tired of faking it. You got tired of showing up and pretending to have it together. When you felt so lost and disoriented, you were waiting for somebody just to help you up, and all it felt like was that they just beat you back down in the middle of that. We have all been in this point in life where we just feel like, man, I just got lost, I got disoriented, I got off track, I got off the trail, and I failed. And look, if that's you, I am so glad that you're here today, because what I want to take a look at is something that nobody taught me along the way in church growing up. It's something that had I known along the way, man, it may have helped me a ton in my failures. It absolutely transformed my life around what happens when I fail and how God views me in the middle of those failures. And so what I want to take a look at today is written by a guy named Paul. Now, if you don't know Paul is a figure in the New Testament, and he wrote, in fact, over half of what we know of the New Testament. Now, the New Testament tells the story of everything that happened in Jesus' life and everything that's happened since then. And so Paul, he would write these letters to these different towns and churches and people groups, and some of these churches Paul helped start. So when you hear about his story on the surface, you go, man, great guy, Paul is awesome. Well, what you may not know about Paul is that he actually made it his mission earlier in life to kill Christians and to destroy Christianity before he became one. So if you're somebody that does not like Christians, like Paul is your guy. You will get Paul and Paul will get you, and you all will get along real well. But Paul, he had a radical encounter with Jesus that absolutely transformed his life. But prior to encountering Jesus, Paul, he had fallen and he had failed hard. And so what we're going to take a look at today is something that I think Paul wrote out of that. We're going to take a look at a letter that Paul wrote to a group of people living in the city of Rome. And here's what Paul had to say to that group of people in Romans chapter 3, verses 23 and 24. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by His grace. Now, if you've been around church for any amount of time, my guess is you've probably heard this before. And maybe it has been used against you to show you where you've messed up, because if Jesus has done work in your life and you've come to believe in Him, like you should have it all together now because you used to sin. Now, I want to define some terms for us here so that we're all on the same page, because I don't know what your experience looks like up to this point. First off, that word sin, it's an archery term. And what this term means is it means miss the mark. So if the bullseye is what God says is right and true and best for our lives, then sin is any time that we miss the mark, any time that we don't hit the bullseye. Now, the other thing about sin is that it isn't just a one-time action. It actually is a state of being. So sin, it looks something like this, that we've missed the mark. So we've ended up somewhere doing something with someone that we never intended to be with, or somewhere we never intended to be, and that failure has started to define every part of our lives from that point forward. Does that sound familiar? That's sin. And then when Paul says the word all, when he says all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, man, that word all means all. No matter how many times you read the Bible a day, no matter how many times you pray, no matter how much you've gone to church, or no matter how many bad things you think you've done and how far gone you think you are, Paul says we are all in the same boat with this. We have all sinned and we all fall short of the glory of God. Now let me clarify something here. All also applies to pastors. So me too on this, myself included around this. And what happens in our lives collectively when we sin is that sin actually results in something. It takes us somewhere. If we go back and look at the verses, it says that all have sinned and all have fallen short of the glory of God. Now again, I want to give some definitions here because what I'm about to show you is something that nobody had ever shown me before. Nobody had ever taught me growing up in church, and it absolutely transformed my view of how God sees me when I fail. That phrase, glory of God, it means this. I always thought it meant like live up to God and try to be God. That's not what it means. What it means to fall short of the glory of God means to fall short of who we were created to be. You got to go all the way back to the story in the very beginning. God created us as humans to bear His image and likeness and to reveal His glory to the rest of creation. We were created to best reflect who God is and what He's like to the rest of creation. So that's what the glory of God means. Now, when it says that all have sinned and fall short, I used to read that growing up, and the way it was used against me even in church growing up was that you used to sin. But now that you follow Jesus, that sin should be in your past. It shouldn't continue happening. But that phrase that Paul wrote in the original context, in the original Greek, that phrase was in the present continual tense. So here's what that means for you and me today. That phrase better translates, keep on falling. All have sinned and keep on falling short of who God created us to be. It's an everyday, present, continual action. So here's the truth Paul is trying to communicate. Let's just make this really simple. We've all missed the mark. We keep on falling short. And we've ended up becoming someone other than who we were created to be. And if you're anything like me, I mean, man, that's just the story of my life, right? Well, we talked about it earlier, but maybe it's an addiction or your relationship with a spouse or significant other, or with your kids. Like, you just keep on trying so hard in those areas, and no matter what you do, you feel like you just keep on falling. Or maybe it's been your experience in church up to this point. Maybe you've kept showing up at church and you felt like, man, I've just got to fake it, because if they really knew what was going on behind the scenes, if they really figured out who I am, then like they wouldn't want me here anymore. And you feel like you just keep on falling in this area of life. And look, Paul gets it. That's why he wrote this. He goes, we keep on falling. We keep on missing the mark. It's a present, everyday, continual action. But thankfully, Paul doesn't stop writing there. He continues on. Romans chapter 3, verses 23 and 24, Paul says, for all have sinned, we've missed the mark, and we keep on falling short of the glory of God, and that's who we were created to be. And then he goes on, and all are justified freely by His grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. Now, you know what's so cool about that word justified? That word justified, it's a legal term that literally translates to be put in right standing. To be put in right standing with what God says is right and true and best for us. It literally means to hit the mark. It's the opposite of sin. Now, justified in this sense, it's not something that we can do for ourselves. It's something that someone else does for us. So what Paul is communicating is that it's Jesus who justifies us. He hits the mark for us on our behalf. And so here's how this works. When Jesus went to the cross and he was nailed to the cross and put in the grave, He took all of our sin, all the times we missed the mark, all of our shame, all of our guilt, and He put it to death with Him in the grave. And He rose from the dead to prove that it's true. Now again, that word justified, we read it on the surface and we read that's a past tense thing. That's something that happened in the past. And you're like, Adam, I've already heard this story before. I've heard it a million times, but I keep screwing it up along the way. You know what else is so cool about that word justified? It's also in the present continual tense in the original Greek. It's almost like that Paul and Jesus, like they knew that our reality would be that we keep on falling. And so they give us this reminder that instead of a past tense justified, God keeps on justifying. God keeps on justifying every single time we miss the mark. So what does that mean for us here today? Well, it starts with this. It means that God isn't surprised when you fall again and again and again. He's not standing there like an angry dad waiting to point His finger in your chest and go, see, I told you so. I knew that you would mess up again. No, instead, He's standing there and He's waiting to actively set you right with what's right and true and best about you. He's ready to actively hit the mark for you every time you mess it up. He's actively waiting with a hand out to help you up when you fall and help you get back on track and say, hey, let's get you back to who you were created to be. But look, even though that's the way that God interacts with us and the way that He receives us back, that hasn't been our experiences in church a lot of times, has it? I mean, I know for a lot of us, myself included, that's been the opposite of what we've experienced in church. Like when you mess up, either you feel like you got to put that mask on and you got to fake it just to get through it again, or worse, you're found out and nobody's waiting to actually help you back in. And in fact, they're kicking you back down when you're already down. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Or how about this? We show up in church and we look around and we see all these people who seem to have it all together on the surface, right? And that's when all those feelings of guilt and shame, they start flooding back in, don't they? Look, church hasn't always been the safest place for us when we fall. It's not always been the safest place for people like you and me, right? But what if? What if it didn't have to be that way? What if when we fall, church was actually the safest, most sound, secure place that we could ever show up in? See, Jesus actually said that's the type of church He envisioned. That's the type of church He came to start. He said that the church, man, it's not full of perfect people. It's more like a hospital. It's full of people who know that we've fallen. We know that we've gotten hurt. We know that we've gotten beat up along the way. And Jesus says, you're a community of people that you come into this place together to find hope and healing, and to find a God who looks at us and goes, I'm going to pull you back up and I'm going to keep on justifying you no matter how many times you've fallen down. You know how we say this around Hope City? We say it this way: we are all in the same boat. Man, we are all in the same boat. We've all sinned. We've all missed the mark. We keep on falling. And yet God keeps on justifying us every single day. We are all in the same boat. I love the way that the Message paraphrase says it just a few verses before in Romans chapter 3, verse 20. Let's check this out. Paul says this, he goes, and it's clear enough, isn't it, that we're sinners, every one of us, in the same sinking boat with everyone else. We are all in the same boat. See, when you come into this community called Hope City, what you're not going to get is a group of people that have it all together. What you're not going to get is a finger pointed in your chest telling you to get your stuff together. What you're going to find instead is a community of people where we lock arms and we say, man, we are a work in progress. Like God is doing work in our lives, and together we're going to have this safe place where we can be real, where we can process through the questions and the doubts and the fears that we have, where we can actually share our story and our real life struggles and go, man, there's no condemnation waiting for us on the other side. Instead, we're going to support each other in that community and become who God created us to be. In that process, we're going to see God keep on justifying the way that He has promised to do continually every single day. And what we're going to find in the middle of a community like that is we're going to find that we get to experience Jesus. And we're going to find Him start to change our lives as we do that. What you're going to find from us when you enter into a community is what it is that Paul talks about here in Romans chapter 3 and what it is that God is offering us in the moment that He keeps on justifying. What you're going to get from us is grace. Back to Romans chapter 3, Paul says this: all are, again, continually being justified freely by His grace. And that word grace, it's being given what you need, not what you deserve. And grace, it's designed to sustain you when you're weak. Grace, it empowers you. And it's what makes a changed life possible. See, what we believe and what Paul is communicating here is that it's possible. It's possible for ordinary, jacked up, messed up people like us to come together into community and to see Jesus start to change our lives as we're just real with each other, right? And as He meets us in the middle of that. And in that process, we start to become who God created us to be. We become people who are revealing the glory of God right here on this earth. And the world gets a better picture of who Jesus is as a result of that. We keep on falling, and God keeps on justifying. We are all in the same boat. I mean, can you imagine? What would it mean for your life to have a church like this? I mean, what if the church was actually known as a hospital for the sick, as a safe place for the fallen? What if us collectively as people who are part of the church, instead of being known as one of the most hypocritical, judgmental people groups on the planet, what if we were known as one of the safest, most authentic, most loving, like I don't have all my crap together, but Jesus is changing me communities that this world has ever seen? I mean, what would it mean for your life to be able to have a safe place to come process through whatever's going on and to see Jesus start to change every aspect of your life, to look more and more like who He created you to be, whether that's your relationships or how you interact with your neighbors or in your workplace or in your home with your kids? What would it look like to have a church that actually supports you in those areas? And what would it mean for our community? Instead of the church to be seen as the problem in our community, for the church to be seen as the solution to anything our community faces. I mean, what if people didn't believe this crazy story that we tell about Jesus and being the Son of God and the resurrection? Like, that might sound nuts, but what if they couldn't imagine a community where Hope City was not part of it? That's the type of church I want to be part of. And we want to invite you to come along this journey with us. We believe that God is leading us to plant a church, to begin a community here where we're all in the same boat. We don't have our stuff together. We believe that we keep on falling every single day. But we believe that every time we keep on falling, God keeps on justifying. And so we can say with confidence, truly, we are all in the same boat.
Let's respond together this morning. People come together, strangers, neighbors, our blood is one. Children of generations, of every nation, of kingdom come.
Don't let your heart be troubled. Hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. Take control, don't be strong. Remember where our help comes from. So don't let your heart be troubled. Just hold your head up high, don't fear no evil. Fix your eyes on this one truth. God is madly in love with you. But take courage, hold on, be strong. Remember where our help comes from. light of heaven, and forever, His kingdom come.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope you were encouraged by Adam's message that when we fall, God is there to pick us back up again.
Yeah, man, we keep on falling. God just keeps right on justifying us time after time after time. And I don't know if today connected with you at all. We would love to hear from you, so you could drop a comment below or message us, or maybe you even want to get involved with the work that we're doing here in Northwest Arkansas with helping start a brand new church to really bring hope to everyone in this region. We actually have a in-person gathering happening in Bentonville this coming Sunday, a week from today. So you can message us for all the details, or you can check out our Facebook page, our Instagram, and you can get all those details there. But we'd love for you to jump in person if that's something that you would like to do. And again, it's Mother's Day.
Yes.
Happy Mother's Day, Ash.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. And just a reminder, we're super excited about Loving Choices. If you didn't get to hear at the beginning,
Yes.
please be sure to interact with this video, like, comment, share, and we will be making a donation to a really great organization and cause here in Northwest Arkansas, Loving Choices.
Yes. So thanks again for being here with us. We will see you online next month or in person next week up in Bentonville. We love you guys. Happy Mother's Day.